Hello, 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 everybody, and I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. So my name is Marshall Shore. I will be your host this evening as we get to go and have some fun. A little bit about why I'm doing this. So, I've been doing this now for a decade, and so I have so many different gigs, whether it be a tour, a lecture, where I'm always in front of people chatting and sharing stories and hearing their stories. And so in this moment of quarantine, I realized I've been really missing that. So that's one of the reasons why I created Arizona History Happy Hour as a way to just kind of keep sharing the love and those stories as we get a chance to talk and learn about this amazing place that we're in called Arizona. So I want to welcome you all as we get ready for yet another fun voyage. Here as we embark, I'll introduce, we have a special guest later on, and I will introduce her, but not quite yet. I'm very excited that she's here, and thank you all for being here. Without you, I would have no reason to be here. Not that I wouldn't be just talking to myself at home, but you know, who doesn't do that? So this is made possible with generous support from you, from Venmo, as well as ARP as a sponsor. So with ARP, the coronavirus continues to affect us all. We may be apart, but we're not alone. ARP is here in Phoenix, providing information that can help you and your family. And if you'd like more information about how they can do that, you can go to arp.org/Phoenix. And you can see I've actually got the website right there on the screen for you to be able to take a look at. So, all right. So as I said, my name is Marshall Shore. I've been doing this for about a decade, but I'm also called the Hip Historian. Now you might wonder, how does one get a name called like the Hip Historian? Well, you know, about 20 years ago, I was working in a library in Brooklyn, and you know what? It was cold, it was winter, and I was ready for some sunshine. And so decided to load everything we own up into a big orange cube, a U-Haul, and they have their International World Headquarters right here in Phoenix, why just up on Central. Now, I've been here about 20 years. How long have you all been here? So that's part of the fun of trying to share a little bit. Oh my gosh. Yeah, some people have been here 10 years. Wendy's been here for 32 years. Oh my gosh. And Aaron, I had no idea you were here for 32 years. So as soon as we moved here, we promptly moved into a 1956 ranch. Now, when we bought it, it was beige on beige on beige, and I think the shutters were yet another tone of beige just to annoy me. So I'm happy to say now it is a lovely, simplified two-tone seafoam and cantaloupe. Now there's what my kitchen looks like today. All that buttercream yellow tile with the push buttons for the stovetop set in the wall. And now if you look at my oven, you'll notice that it might not look like your oven. There's something missing. What do you think is missing? Why, indeed, I do see somebody said a window, because my oven doesn't have a window in the door. And so if I'm baking a cake and I want to check on it, I've got to so carefully open, but even more gingerly shut that door, because if I let it slam, what happens? Oh my gosh, my cake just goes flat. And no one wants a flat cake. Now, as soon as I got here, all I kept hearing about how there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true, because every time I went somewhere, I came face to face with so many amazing stories. And then there's that post-war boom. All those GIs that were either stationed here, trained here, passed through on their way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving to Arizona in huge numbers. and in some cases looking for houses just like mine. And then there's this man, Dr. Carrier, the inventor of air conditioning. So let's give him a round of applause, because without him, we wouldn't be here as long as we're here and as happy as we are throughout these coming summer months. As I guess we're getting ready to get a little taste of that very soon. I see we're going to be hitting back in the hundreds again. But you know, we had a nice little cool respite, which was nice. And also the Phoenix New Times has named me best historian several years running, as well as Phoenix Magazine named me the best bespectacled Phoenix celebrity, because I do indeed like my eyewear. And you know, and actually last weekend, we were supposed to have an eyewear fashion show, but because of what we're all in right now, that didn't happen. So I look forward to when we can all get out there and share and look at our eyewear together close up. Now, you might be asking, what is Marshall wearing? Because I'm always kind of marching to the beat of my own drum. Now, I'm not going to show you my plaid pants, but I will tell you a little about the jacket that I'm wearing. So you might remember every February 14th, we have a celebration for ourselves for Statehood Day. And back in 2012, we had one whiz bang of a celebration. Why, there were things going on across the state, including on that February 14th, right in front of the state capitol. They had a big stage set up and all kinds of things going on. And someone gave me 15 minutes to talk about anything I wanted to. And I chose one of my most favorite events that most people don't know anything about. It was started back in 1926 by Charlotte Hall. It was called Masque of the Yellow Moon. It was based on a legend about how the god of sun in the fall or in the spring would give his rays to make the earth golden and warm and make things grow. So it was always a springtime event. Now, it was first held at the Elsriba Shriners Temple, just down the street from the Capitol. And it later on became the Mining and Mineral Museum. But, you know, sadly, they got kicked out for something that didn't happen. But they're going to be moving back into that space, which is very exciting because it's a really cool space and a really cool, quirky museum. Now, it moved then to Montgomery Stadium, which was the first stadium here in Arizona. And, you know, there were all kinds of firsts that were done here, including our very first bowl game. Now, I sure wish somebody would bring this bowl game back because it's something that I could really sink my fork into. It was called the Salad Bowl. And what would you expect from the Salad Bowl? Why, none other than the queen of the Salad Bowl riding in her very own salad bowl with her spoon and fork to serve from. Now, at its height, the Masque of the Yellow Moon had about 5,000 high school and college students performing, as well as behind the stage, building the sets. It was truly a student effort. Why, it was woven through the curriculum so that you had the debate club doing skits. You had multiple marching bands. You had these really large, elaborate sets. Now, I've got a story from a guy. Him and his friends would go steal a bit of that set and drag it back to his cottage, and they would put on little plays throughout the rest of the year in front of that bit of stolen set. That was also known for a lot of young ladies taking the stage for the first time, wearing costumes designed by students and made by home ec. It was one of those things that was touted right there as with Mardi Gras as something that everyone in the country should go and see. And I was lucky enough to find a few dresses in a box. And I was allowed to borrow them for 24 hours, and the clock was ticking. So I was able to get 3 friends to don these amazing dresses. And let's get a little closer look. So what we're looking at here is you're looking at late 30s dresses in amazing condition. And you may have guessed, I'm not a very good wallflower. So I needed something that would stand up to those amazing dresses. So I talked to my friend, Glenn. Now, when Glenn rolled into town in the early 50s, he was a sign designer already. The first sign he worked on was the Buckhorn Baz out in East Mesa. Here he is with the Arizona Sign Association. He was recently inducted into their Hall of Fame. And he is in his early 90s. One of the signs he also did was the My Flora sign over at 7th Avenue in McDowell. And he did this jacket as an homage to the Arizona state flag. So, and I think he did a heck of a job. It then got me realizing, why not have other suit coats done by local artists, all on a variety of themes? So that way I can show up to almost any event, overdressed, but on theme. Now, one of the reasons I always like to start with this story is because you never know where the next bit of the story is coming from. Now, I did a program for a group called Arizona's First Families. And when I was done, I had a woman tap me on the shoulder and say, can you come out to my car? I want to show you something. And she pulled out this dress. This dress was her mother's dress that she wore in the Mask of the Yellow Moon. Now, what was even cooler was she had the programs that her mom had. And so we know this dress was worn in either 1928 or 29. And for that age, this dress is in immaculate condition. And so at that point, the librarian in me kicked in. I didn't have white gloves. I wasn't about to touch those frail pieces of paper and damage them any further. So I didn't get a chance to take a look and exactly see which year or what number it was worn for. And so, it would not be an Arizona History Happy Hour unless there was a cocktail. And let's see if, and I think it's actually going to work this time. All right. There we go. All right. So we are going to be making a bourbon Manhattan, and we'll explain why it's the bourbon Manhattan in just a moment, because it actually ties into our whole theme tonight. So what we do need is, so I have some lovely billet bourbon, which is oh so tasty. All right. And then we have our sweet vermouth. All right. A couple dashes of bitters. And then I'm going to throw some ice in there. I'm going to stir that up. And, I decided to splurge, and I went out and got myself some Luxardo cherries, which are kind of the original version of what maraschinos are supposed to be. And it worked. All right. People actually got to see me make a cocktail this week. All right, so let's take that off. All right. So cheers, everyone. Oh, that's tasty. I can see why that was someone's favorite cocktail. All right, so through the miracle of modern technology, as predicted by Reader's Digest, way back in the 50s, they knew that we were going to be sitting here wanting to chat and look at each other. So they indeed did predict video phones. So cheers indeed. All right. So I'd like to welcome to our screen Stephanie from the Arizona State Capitol Museum.
Hi.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for having
So,
me.
oh my gosh, we're gonna have so much fun. Some people
I'm
have said
excited.
that the trivia is their favorite part of this. I'm kind of preferential to the cocktail portion, but
The trivia, I
but
think, is pretty good.
yeah, no, I mean, I love it because in some ways, it allows us to tell different stories, and it's so engaging that it. And the beauty of the trivia is that it's a multiple choice. So even if you don't know the answer, take a guess. And the beauty of it is that we then go at the end of it, we'll go through all the answers and explain why those are the answers.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about the state capitol.
Sure. So this is a picture of the Constitutional Convention. I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you about prior to the Constitutional Convention. Um, Arizona decided that the state capital, or I'm sorry, the territorial capital would be located in Phoenix in the late 1800s. And they were, at that time, they were really trying to make the case for why Arizona should become a state. And so one of the things they did was they decided to go ahead and build a capitol. And so that historic capitol building, the one with the copper dome, has been there since they started construction in 1899. And it became the territorial capital. Then, of course, when Arizona became a state in 1912, it became our state capital. But one of the really exciting events that happened there was our constitutional convention. So in 1910, 52 delegates got together and they wrote what would become our state constitution. And so that's a really big part of what our programming and our exhibits kind of revolve around, is that time kind of leading up to our statehood.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And
This
so what's going on with all that water I see?
So this one's from 1905. So this is during the territory still. Of course, the landscaping was still in development. And we're not too far from the Salt River, so floods happen, and we've got some pretty interesting photos. I couldn't find the exact one that I wanted to share. There's one photo that's from much further back, and you can see that like the whole complex is flooded, basically. So they actually ended up putting kind of a moat around part of the Capitol because there's so much groundwater underneath us. So water has been kind of a thing for us.
And so what's going on here?
Yeah,
What's
so
Mr.
this is
Katie doing standing outside with a group of people?
I know. So this is one of our dedicated volunteers, Mike Katie, who gives an amazing tour. He's done so much research on the history of the building and the grounds. I think Mike actually may be joining us tonight. Hi, Mike. And when I was putting together this whole presentation, I kept going back to Mike's notes and his research and all of the information that he shared with us over the years. And I just felt like I needed to share this picture because so much of this information that we'll be talking about tonight came from Mike's work. And
he does such a fun tour of outside the building before you even go into the Capitol.
Yes.
All the stuff about the grounds and just looking at the outside of the building that was fascinating.
Exactly. And we get so many questions about why is the Arizona Capitol so different from other capitals? And so that tour really answers that question and shares all the cool, kind of neat little nuggets of information about the architecture and the phases of building and all that good stuff. Yeah, and so this is a picture of the Capitol today. So of course the Arizona Capitol Museum is housed in this building. It's the historic Capitol. We'll talk a little bit later about who moved out of it and when they decided to create a museum. But we actually were able to celebrate our 40th anniversary in 2019. So we've been around for a while, and we are not quite open yet. We haven't decided on a definitive date, but when we do reopen, we hope that everybody will come down and see us and check out our exhibits. We have free admission, and we're really excited to share all that we have with folks again soon.
All right. Oh my gosh. Is it time for a trivia?
Woo!
All right. So everybody get your pen and paper ready. Or if you want to type them into the screen, now realize there's also a lag, so people may not know what question you're answering. So, but you know, the beauty of it is, even if you don't know the answer, just take a random guess, because by the end of all of this, you'll know some of those answers that you didn't know walking into it. All right, so our first question is, the iron cage in the museum was originally intended for what purpose? A restroom, B, a jail cell, C, an elevator, or D, holding for unruly children? Because I'm sure you never get any of those at the museum.
That's awesome.
All right, well, if you're asking how to do some of these tours, well, you actually have to wait till the museum opens before you can go on any sort of a tour. So,
yes.
And I'm sure that they'll have a whole list of how you can do that on their webpage.
Mm-hmm. You can also check out our Facebook, Arizona Capitol Museum. But yeah, we will continue to post updates on our website. We also have a calendar. So when we start our programming back up and our tours, all of that good stuff is on our website.
All right. Question 2. Where did the electricity come from to power the elevator? A gerbil wheel, B, a trolley, C, APS, or D, batteries? Where did electricity come from to power the one elevator that's in the Capitol? All right, moving on to question 3. Where is the only fireplace in the building located? A, the women's restroom, B, the basement, C, the governor's office, or D, the reception room? Where is the only fireplace in the building located? What was the last office to move out of the building before it was restored and turned into a museum? Was it A, the assessor's office, B, the mail office, C, the governor's office, or D, the treasurer's office? Which one of those was the last to move out of the old Capitol? All right, we're coming to the home stretch. Well, you know, actually we added a few more just because there were so many good stories. So we're not even quite halfway there yet, but we'll get there soon. So currently there's a coffee shop. What was that space originally used for? A, the governor's office, B, a boiler room, C, a cafeteria, or D, a woman's restroom? What was the coffee shop originally? All right, now I think we're at that halfway mark. All right, the Arizona Constitution provides a description of the state seal. What is missing from the historic mosaic seal in the Capitol Rotunda? Is it A, copper, B, citrus, C, climate, or D, cattle? In that beautiful mosaic in the middle of the rotunda, when you first walk in, one of those is missing. Which one is it? How many people have lain in state in the state capitol rotunda? A, 0, B, 22, C, 39, or D, 57? How many people have lain in state and in that rotunda? All right. Question 8. How was the building originally cooled? A, air conditioner, B, conditioned air, C, portholes, or D, a swamp cooler? How was the state capitol originally cooled? All right. What famous court case was heard in the Supreme Court chambers in 1938 edition of the Capitol? All right. So in that 1938 edition of the Capitol, What was the most famous case heard? Was it A, Bates v. State Bar of Arizona? Was it B, State v. Tucson Gas, Electric, Light, and Power? Was it C, Miranda v. Arizona? Or D, Finkbein v. Arizona? Which one of those is the most famous case to be heard in that edition, in that late 30s edition on the Capitol? Why are some of the light fixtures facing up and others pointing down in the Capitol? A, indirect lighting. B, fire safety. C, some were gas, others were electric. Or D, short wires. Why do you think that some of the light fixtures face up and some face down? All right, only 2 more questions to go. In what year did a murder-suicide take place in the Capitol building? Oh my gosh, I don't know. Was it 1899? Or was it B, 1912? Was it C, 1929? Or D, 1984? In what year was there a murder-suicide at the Capitol? And our last and final question that we're asking, what is the angel on top of the copper dome named? A, Madame du Arizona. B, hey lady. C, Wing Victory. Or D, Gabriel. Which one of those is the name of the angel on top of the state capitol? Now we'll give everyone a few seconds, because depending on what format you're on, I know there's a little bit of a lag, so we'll just kind of wait for people to catch up. So as we get ready to go through the answers and tell some good stories. All right. All right, so question number 1. The iron cage in the museum was originally intended to be an elevator.
Yeah, an elevator. So I had to laugh when you added the jail cell and the children, because kids have a lot of questions about whether or not the elevator cage is a jail cell.
Well, that's what I thought it looked like. I was like, you know.
Right. Yeah, like they must have been to Jerome or something, and they think that it's like,
Anything with bars must be a jail cell.
Yeah, so they had a really modest budget when they were building this Capitol building. And so my understanding is that there was a misunderstanding with the quotes for the elevators. And so they thought they had enough for 2, and then it turned out that they only had enough for 1. So they put the cage in, but they never actually installed the elevator. So now we just use it for storage, and it's a good story.
So there were supposed to be 2 elevators.
Yes.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Yeah, they had to cut a lot of corners. They originally had planned for, they had based the design around Mississippi's capital, which is like a castle. I mean, it's huge and so grand. And then, of course, because of budgets, they had to kind of slim down their expectations. And an architect named James Riley Gordon ended up getting, he had the design that they went with. And he was known for his Texas courthouses. So a lot of folks who visit us from Texas kind of recognize the architecture and they feel at home.
Okay. All right. Question 2. Where did the electricity come from to power the elevator?
It came from the trolley.
Oh my gosh. The trolley went all the way to the Capitol?
It did. So the gentleman who provided the land for the Capitol, Moses Sherman, he also started the trolley line. And Moses Sherman is a really well-known character in the West. He ended up going on to California, becoming very wealthy, founded Sherman Oaks, that whole thing. And so, yeah, originally the elevator was powered by that electricity line that went down Adams for the trolley. We get a lot of questions, is the Capitol haunted? And sometimes people respond and say that the lights flicker. But it's when you hit one particular button in the elevator that the lights flicker.
So don't touch the button that
Right.
flickers with your tongue.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
It's just a little, special feature of our elevator.
That's funny.
Yeah, and a quick shout out to the Phoenix Trolley Museum. They have a really cool exhibit that they put together with the Heard Museum, actually, and it is in the Capitol Museum. And so when we reopen, we hope that folks will come down and check it out.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, because I love their music. Actually, I would like to get them on as well, because that's such a fun museum as well.
Oh yeah. There's so much cool history with the trolley lines. It went all over. I mean, it was such a huge part of it.
All right. Where is the only fireplace in the building located? It's in the governor's office.
Yes, and I kind of chose this question because I wanted to share these pictures from the state archives. I just love them so much. On the left, we have Governor Hunt is arranging roses in his office, and on the right, he's knitting. And the description for the knitting photo is from 1918, and he was knitting, I think it was socks for soldiers overseas.
Well, and I would like to add now, since we now see Governor Hunt, the reason why we're drinking a bourbon Manhattan is because that was his favorite cocktail. Every time he walked into the Adams Hotel, that's what he got. So that's why I decided to make that the cocktail of the day or the night, because I have not been drinking all day. All right. What was the last office to move out of the building before it was restored and turned into a museum?
Also the governor's office.
Wow.
Yeah. So Governor Jack Williams was the last one to move out. There were all these great newspaper articles about how he takes this historic stroll that's, I think it was like 176 feet from his old office to his new office. And Jack Williams was an interesting character. He was the mayor of Phoenix before he became governor. And he was known for having the frosted eyeglasses. When he was younger, he had a tumor behind his eye, and so he had to have his eye removed, and the tumor as well, of course. And when after he went through like a radiation kind of treatment, he wasn't able to have a glass eye after that. So he became kind of known for having these frosted, one lens would be frosted on his glasses.
Wow. And I actually have a briefcase that has a plaque. So it used to belong to.
Oh, wow.
One-Eyed Jack, as they would call him.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What was the coffee shop space originally used for? It was the boiler room.
The boiler room. So this is one of the radiators that we have in the historic house chamber. So one of the questions we'll get to in a minute was about how did they keep the building cool? But of course, back then in the desert before the heat island, it got pretty cool and needed to be warmed as well, or heated. So so they had a boiler in the coffee shop, and it radiated throughout the building. And we still have some of those gorgeous radiators in the historic house chambers.
And this is actually one of my favorite things, because most people, when they first see the seal, don't realize there's anything missing. So out of the Constitution that describes the state seal. And so in that, what is missing in the seal?
It's the cattle. So It might be hard. I'm not sure if folks can see, depending on what kind of screen they're on, but the cattle should be down in the kind of the bottom right, like kind of where Arizona is on the seal. And they ordered this custom mosaic from a tile factory. And when it arrived, of course, they realized that it was inaccurate. It was missing the cow, but they had a dance planned. So they went ahead and they installed the inaccurate seal. I'm sure they thought, one day we'll fix this, but now it's almost 100 years later. I think the dance was in 1924.
Yeah, so I don't think anything's going to happen to the seal now.
Nope. Now it's a historic landmark, and it's going to stay the way it is. And this is one of those classic, we've been touring elementary students since 1979, 1980. And this is one of those things when teachers come in, they have their kids, wrap around the seal and point out what's missing. And they also try to look for the 5 C's.
Exactly. That's whenever I do a class visit and we're talking about the Capitol, that's always what I show them is, hey, let's talk about the 5 C's. And which one is not in the state seal on the floor of the Capitol.
And what's so interesting about that too is, the 5 C's was an advertisement that came out in the 30s, but it made sense. Of course, all of those industries were so important that they made it into our seal much earlier on.
And how many people have been laying in state in this Capitol Rotunda?
39. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was surprised. So back when we were planning Senator McCain's services, we got questions about that. And so the state library did a lot of really in-depth research, and they came up with a list. And so I think the first one was Governor Kibbe in the 1920s. And then the most recent have been Senator McCain and Congressman Ed Pastor in 2018. So it's kind of when you go into the museum field, you don't always anticipate that you'll be participating in memorial services, but it's a really kind of an honor to be able to, be a part of those kinds of ceremonies.
Well, and commemorate those people and their service to Arizona.
Yes.
I mean, my gosh, with both McCain and Pastor, what a legacy they've both left for Arizona, and to be able to have the Capitol continue to be a part of that history, as opposed to just being stuck in that time period when it was the Capitol.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Question 8. How was the building originally cooled?
Portholes. So you can see up at the top of this, the top of this photo, there's these circular windows.
It looks like a ship.
Say that again?
It looks like a ship.
Yes, exactly. So those used to pop out. And so, heat rises. So it would flow between, they would get the air moving through those windows. We've heard some stories about pigeons coming through and disrupting the legislative session. But that's, just is what it is. They also, of course, used fans. And that's something that I was surprised when I started working at the museum to learn that there are so many historic fans in the Capitol Museum collection. You can see in this picture here, there's just a few of them. And of course, these are made of iron, and they are so heavy, Marshall. They
look extremely heavy.
They're so hard to move. But that was a big thing. Anytime there's a few newspaper articles about electricity going out in the middle of the summer and none of the fans are working, and it's just the most miserable, place to be. They also they originally had awnings to kind of help block out the sun. And for a time they put, what are those called? Like the portable air conditioners that would go, like the window unit.
Oh.
And they started
that was pretty.
Yeah, exactly. They started to get a lot of flack because it was not attractive. And so there were some newspaper kind of editorial pieces about how the Capitol needs to clean up its windows and figure something else out. So we're very grateful for our air-conditioned building now.
I'm sure you are. All right. So what famous court case was heard in the Supreme Court chambers in the 1938 edition of the Capitol? Miranda rights. Right.
Yeah. So the Arizona Supreme Court originally heard this case, and it was, they didn't rule in his favor. They ruled against him, and he appealed to the Supreme Court, and they ended up ruling in his favor. And so as a response, we have, or as a result, we have the Miranda rights now, and police departments around the country started to give out these Miranda rights cards. so that their police officers could recite these rights to folks. So this is a huge case that's really important to our state history. And I also just want to point out, it might be hard to see, but in the photograph of the chief justices or the justices at the Supreme Court bench, Lorna Lockwood is in the middle of it, and she was yeah. So she wasn't chief justice, but she was one of the associate justices when they heard this case, and she was actually the first woman in the country to become a chief justice of a Supreme Court, of a state Supreme Court. And she did not lay in state for 24 hours like some people did, but when she passed away, they did have a memorial service for her on the state seal.
Very cool. All right. And why do some of the light fixtures face up and others point down?
So sorry.
No, go right ahead.
I'm so excited. Some were gas and others were electric. So the ones that pointed up were gas powered, and then the ones that pointed down were electric. So you can kind of see, might be easiest to look at the bottom of the chandelier to see the ones pointing down and the top to see the ones pointing up. And that's how the lights are throughout the whole building. All of our light fixtures are reproductions. In particular, we talk about the chandelier a lot because it kind of disappeared in a kind of a metal collection effort during World War II. My. So yeah, so it's kind of a bummer that it's not the original, but it's a cool story to tell, at least about.
So that's why it's so shiny. I've always wondered why it was so shiny.
Yep, there you go. We do have some originals, and they have a lot more of a copper color to them, and yeah, they're not as shiny.
Okay. Wow. All right. What year did a murder-suicide take place in the Capitol building?
1912. I have to laugh because I when I originally heard this story, I just assumed that it was like early on, like really early territorial days, like before people really there was a lot of folks around. And then of course it was May of 1912 after Arizona already became a state. So I thought that was interesting. And of course back then there wasn't a lot of I guess forensics that they could do. So there isn't a whole lot of information about the case or the motive behind it. But we think there was basically a disagreement with the Survey General, and that's the person that ended up getting murdered, unfortunately. Okay. So this is another, people ask, is the museum haunted? I have never seen any examples of, the ghost of the Surveyor General or anything. This is a kind of a story that we tell around Halloween, I guess.
Understandable. And our last question is, what is the angel on top of the copper dome named?
Winged Victory. I think a lot of people got that one.
I think so. Because especially since Centennial, a lot of, when they redid the dome, so many people were talking about Winged Victory.
Yes. And she's become such a kind of an iconic symbol for the state capitol and I guess like our government complex as well. It's interesting because it's a weather vane. It's a 16-foot tall weather vane that was purchased out of a catalog. I think it was $165. And at one point, they actually tied it down because some of the folks around the Capitol claimed that they were offended by seeing her backside when she would spin. But fortunately, when they did a restoration, they removed those ties and they did some work. They basically filled it with foam, the statue with foam, so that it would be more sturdy. And now it rotates again. I always love to talk about if you're in the museum and it's pretty quiet and it's windy outside, it almost sounds like orca whales. Like it's just this kind of crazy full sound that moves throughout the dome. That's really neat. And if you want to learn more about it, you can check out the Valley 101 podcast that we recently did. And that was another thing that Mike Cady, our awesome volunteer, was recognized, and he did part of the interview for that podcast. So you can learn a lot more about Winged Victory if you check that out.
Yeah, it's a really cool podcast. I like a lot of the stories they've been telling through that. So it's a great way to just kind of learn about some of those things like,
Mm-hmm. And they range in length too. So it's not always like committing to an hour. I think the
Right.
one on
So yeah, exactly. And that was kind of nice is you don't necessarily have to commit to an hour. It's like, okay, I've got 20 minutes. So, or now that we're having traffic again, it's a great way to pass the time with some traffic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when do you foresee okay, so how did people do on the trivia questions? So I have a feeling some of you did really well, but I also have a feeling some of you might not have done so well. But the beauty is now some of those answers, and you'll probably never forget all about winged victory. Or the jail cell in the Capitol.
Yeah. Right. These are classic Arizona stories.
Indeed they are. Oh no, Nikki, again? But did you have fun? That's the main thing. I mean, Nikki hasn't been doing very well, but but that's always the fun of just now more to the story.
Absolutely.
So, Stephanie, tell us a little bit about kind of what is in the near future for the museum.
Absolutely. So we've been doing a lot of, I just have to say that our staff has been amazing, transitioning to working from home and trying to figure out what kinds of services we can provide virtually. So we already had over a dozen collections, artifact collections on the Arizona Memory Project, and we are working on uploading some more collections. We've got one of campaign memorabilia that we're going to be uploading soon. So that will be really, really cool, especially if you are like, I think a lot of the folks who are watching this probably will remember a lot of the characters and the politicians that are recognized in that online exhibit. So definitely check out the Arizona Memory Project. We're also, we've been trying to think about how do we serve our kids. Giving field trips is such a huge part of what we do. We tour over 20,000 third, fourth graders every year. So anticipating that we're probably not going to have as many field trips this coming year, we've decided to create a virtual tour that can be viewed either in the classroom or from home. So we're getting ready to record that. We're really excited, and we're looking into having some more interactive pieces, like trying to have a Q&A with one of our docents, things like that, leading other kinds of activities in the classroom that kind of mirror what we would do in the museum. So we're also working to complete that, and people will be able to sign up for tours on our website, those virtual tours on our website pretty soon. It should be in the next couple of months. And then we're also considering what kind of activities we can do outside. So we've been kind of playing around with the idea this week of doing some outdoor tours of the Capitol, kind of like Mike's tour, but maybe incorporating some more of the monuments and other features of the Capitol complex.
So that would be really nice, because most people don't realize what all is out there.
Exactly. And the Wesley Bowl and Plaza especially, we get so many compliments on that. There are a lot of folks out there who it's a big hobby of theirs to go to state capitals. And that's one thing we hear frequently from people, is that they've never seen like a plaza with those kinds of statues and monuments at other capitals. So that's kind of something we want to brag about. So we're working on developing a tour of that, and just continuing to do everything we can to provide those services virtually until we're able to open up all of our exhibits. But we're really hoping that we'll be able to open up soon. At this point, we're just trying to get the PPE and all the equipment and stuff that we need to make sure that our visitors and our staff feel safe. But it shouldn't be too long.
Very good. Well, I also want to let you know that there's a lot of folks saying thank you, Stephanie, for putting together such a great little trivia question.
Aww.
So that way we could have some fun and tell some stories.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
So thank you so much for being here, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye. All right. So we always have a variety of segments. And so one of them is Arizona music history, because there is just so much amazing history here. And so growing up in Indiana, I guess, as a lot of kids were driving around listening to whatever, one of the two albums I played a lot blaring in my car was Linda Ronstadt with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra. And so moving to Arizona and finding out she was from Tucson and that she has over 45 albums, 30 of her singing her own songs and things like that, a compilation of albums, as well as then a whole slew of other hundreds of albums that she's done vocals on. Now, if you're ever walking down the Hollywood Walk of Fame, you will see there is one star that is split 3 ways for Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harrison, and Linda Ronstadt for their music group trio. Now, she had 21 singles that reached the top 40, 10 that reached the top 10, and You're No Good reached number 1. She has done vocals with so many folks like Bette Midler, Rosemary Clooney, Graham Parsons, Johnny Cash, Neil Young, Paul Simon, and the list goes on. Philip Glass, such a variety of things. I mean, so many different styles of music, from that rock, country, opera, and Latin music. She has 10 Grammys, a few American Music Awards, 2 Academy of Country Music Awards, and an Emmy Award, and even a Latin Grammy and a Grammy for Lifetime Achievement. And she was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame several years ago. And Jazz Times wrote that Linda Ronstadt is blessed with arguably the most sterling set of pipes of her generation. So I am just happy that she is here in Arizona and still hanging around. So thank you, Linda, for all that music that we've enjoyed so much. And Liz, you've been to the hardware store. Yes, indeed, there is a great biography of her up on YouTube. All right, so now we go on to Little Arizona. So, I started putting together a whole collection of just looking at some of those small towns, because I grew up in a small town of like 25 people. And even though I like being in the big city, there are moments where those little cities have such flavor that you don't necessarily find in a big city. And so this week we are talking about, so these mountains are the DeGrune Mountains, and they're in Cochise County, in between Benton and Wilcox, just off of Interstate 10. Now, Dragoon was first named because of cavalry that were there. Were a troop that used a special kind of gun. And so they had, we'll get to Ray, Arizona in a different story. I mean, we've got lots more coming. So every week it's a different town. And so originally Dragoon had a station that was for the Butterfield station where people would come through. Now, this particular stop was really more just about watering and refreshing your horses. It didn't necessarily have places for you to dine, things like that. And indeed, there were a lot of movies filmed there, and we're going to get into that. And so, but this Texas Canyon is kind of a sacred area for Native Americans. And it's rumored that Cochise, the legendary Apache leader, actually stayed in this area. And this is actually the foundation of Dragoon Station as it looks today. You can still kind of see the outline. Now, if you're going through, you'll also find the Amerind Museum, which is opened up in the late 30s and really kind of shares that early culture that was there with the Apaches. Now, they do have a series of permanent things on collection, as well as guest exhibitions, as well as a slew of lectures, and even a really good gift shop where you can buy things from the community. So looking forward to another fine museum opening its doors. Now, a little bit further down the road, you'll wind up in the Triangle T Historic Ranch. Now, if this building looks familiar or some of the other buildings around it, you might notice them from maybe 310 to Yuma, Tombstone, Young Guns, Geronimo, even John Wayne movies such as Duel in the Sun or Duke. Even some of the original Lone Ranger movies were shot here, and you can still see many of the landmarks around the neighborhood that was there. So yeah, so I mean, I just think I love those small towns because there's so much amazing history. And so one of my favorite things, being kind of the kitsch king that I am, is The Thing. Now, The Thing has been around since the early 50s, and you would see signs leading up to it for miles, and it would be encouraging you to stop and see The Thing, because how could you not see The Thing? And, now they've done a little updating, so it's a little different than it used to be. It's a little more air-conditioned is probably a better term. And so now the exhibit is more about aliens versus dinosaurs. So it's still a fun exhibit, but they still indeed do have The Thing. Although it's kind of now off in a corner, a little bit harder to find, but still worth a stop. And you can also, it's a gas station as well, so you can refill your tank. You can also get something to eat there. So I think Dragoon is a fine place to take a stop off and spend a little bit of time and learn some Arizona history. And even The Thing has its own Arizona history about what is it? Is it mummy? Is it not? That's part of the mystery. All right, so now let's see if I can get my Hist-O-Cam to work. All right. Okay. And let's see. There we go. All right. So, we're pulling off a variety of things, and I do want to do a little plug. So in October, I normally do a series of Winnie Ruth Judd tours. So kind of trying to figure out what that looks like. But I did want to talk about, so this is the book Winnie Ruth Judd, The Trunk Murders, which was actually the first edition was back in 1973 when this was first produced. This is an updated version with some new information added into it. And one of the reasons why I'm showing this is because on Sunday at Valley Bar, if you've ever been to Valley Bar, they have a great work of art that tells the story of Winnie Ruth Judd. So we're actually going to do that this Sunday. Although I'm going to be doing it from the privacy of my own home, you could tune in to either Valley Bar's webpage or Facebook for Marshall Shore Hip Historian, or even Twitch or YouTube as well. You can tap into those things. So now let's bum, ba-dum, bum. And then we'll go. There we go. See, I'm getting better and better with this. All right. So now I always like to throw out and say, if you have any questions, stories, I've actually had a couple people suggest things that I'm incorporating. Actually, one person suggests we talk a little bit about Tex Earnhardt, who recently passed away. And so that's one of the people we're actually going to be talking about on Sunday, is a little bit of Tex Earnhardt's, his history of kind of being a car salesman and some of the amazing things he did. Also, if you have stories or images that you would like to share, please let me see them, because, people are where I really get my best sources of information and my best stories coming from folks. So also, I am working with the Arizona LGBT plus History Project, and that is a collaboration between ASU libraries as well as Phoenix Pride. And we're looking at the very last Thursday of June, having a very special LGBT plus History Project, Arizona History Happy Hour. So I'll let you know more about that as more is rolling out. I am also part of the Arizona Da Vinci Sign Coalition as we start talking about neon signs. Actually, I don't yet. Do you? So Nate is asking if I know the story behind Tex Earnhardt's famous phrase, "That ain't no bull." I'm wondering if he's asking because maybe he does. But, I probably will know by Sunday. And if you know, please share with me, Nate. Also, I am on the board of the Arizona Apparel Foundation, which is the nonprofit side of fabric, which has done a monumental thing in the last month or two, really going into taking fashion designers and sewers and creating PPE gowns. So they have been on a variety of news stations, and they have several designers actually there 4 days a week sewing gowns for hospitals and other organizations that are now needing PPE clothing. So that's pretty exciting. I'm also excited to say that the Phoenix Art Museum, Helen is now the new curator of the fashion collection there, which is really cool. She was interim and recently just announced that she was appointed as the director of the fashion collection at the Phoenix Museum of the Arts. So I'm really excited to get a chance to get back in there. They have a great exhibit up right now that is influences on fashion from East India. And so looking forward to when we can all go see that exhibit. And so Valley Bar, you can track me down either on Valley Bar's Facebook page, Marshall Hip Historian, or also on Twitch or YouTube. You can find that program there on Sunday at 7 o'clock as well. And so here's how you can reach out. Now, again, this is only made possible because of folks like you. Now, next week, same bat time, same bat channel, we have my friend Kim from the Eisendrath House. So excited to have her come on and tell us some of the amazing history of that house. So I do want to say that, this could not happen without support from you all, as well as AARP. So, the coronavirus continues to affect us all. We may be apart, but we're not alone. AARP is here in Phoenix providing information that can help you and your family. You can reach out and find out how they can help at aarp.org/Phoenix. So click on them and see what they can help you with. And I look forward to seeing you here. Same bat time, same bat channel. I think it was such a fun show. Look forward to learning more about the Eisendrath House. I'm already setting up other programs throughout the entire month of June. So we are going to have a fun-filled month coming up. Oh my gosh, I can hardly wait. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your night.